Hi, welcome to Bet Your Chess. Welcome to Supporter Game Analysis. My name is Waldemar Moes. Supporter of the day is Auke van Nie. Thank you, Auke, for sending in your game and subscribing to the YouTube channel. We're going to take a look at an SGA competition game that was played last Friday between two teams from Amsterdam, EMPS 3 and Chaturanga 1. Auke was playing with the black pieces and his opponent was Albert de Roo. I ran a stockfish report and quite a lot of suboptimal moves were made, so there's probably a lot to be learned. Let's dive right into it. Okay, Albert opened up with e4 and Auke replied with c5, the Sicilian Defense. Knight f3 was played, knight c6, c3, the Alpin setup against the Sicilian, and now d6 was played. Now this is a slight inaccuracy, but not one of the type that I really want to focus on in this game, because the theme of this game, as you can find in the title, is targets, targets and targets. So we'll just skip this one. Bishop e2, g6, castles, bishop g7, d3, knight f6, and now bishop e3. So this is the first moment where I want to pause really. With his move bishop c1 to e3, white has just gifted black a target. Now there are many rules with regards to targets, but let me just explain them to you when we encounter them throughout the game. So one of the rules with regards to normal pieces not being the king is that a piece can be considered a target when it can be attacked in one move by a piece of lesser value. And in this case, white has just gifted a target on e3, because this bishop on e3 can be attacked in one move by a piece of lesser value. And yes, we do consider the knight to be of slightly lesser value than the bishop. But that is not all. By leaving the c1 square, now also the b2 pawn has become unprotected. And this refers to the second rule about pieces other than the king. There's a mosquito flying around, a big one in my room, so if I do appear distracted every now and then you know the reason. Okay, so the other rule is that when attack and defense with regards to a certain piece are in balance, then that certain piece can be considered a target. In this case, there are 0 attackers and 0 defenders, or protectors if you like, and 0 equals 0. So defense and offense with regards to the pawn on b2 are in balance, and hence the pawn can be considered a target. So with this move bishop c1 to e3, white just gifted black 2 targets to attack sooner or later. Yeah, but basically that's what you have to do with targets. You have to target them and attack them. And yes, chess is really that simple. Okay, so now let's see how black continues. Black immediately tries to attack this target, or actually tries, he does attack this target. Now it's maybe not an ideal move, Stockfish considers this move to be not so precise, and I suppose that has to do with the fact that soon black's queen can also become a target, and that for the moment the pawn on b2 can very easily be defended. And then the bottom line is that black has moved his queen too early in the opening when he's supposed to do other stuff, right? So not only does he attack the target, but as I say, soon the queen will also be a target to white's pieces. She has been developed a little bit too early. And we can also see, for instance, that the queen is not completely safe on this diagonal, because the bishop, although it's a target itself, also radiates some activity towards the queen on b6. So white now plays an easy move. queen c2. That gives the queen something to do. It prepares connecting the rooks, and it very easily defends the pawn on b2. The pawn on b2 is still a target because it is 1 for 1, but of course black can now not crash through because he first needs to disturb that balance. That's how you play chess. Go away, mosquito. Okay, so castles is played, and now knight b to d2. This move is also troublesome because it completely locks in the targets on e3. And I think I really would like to play a move like knight g4 here, chasing that bishop. Of course, you would need to figure out what happens if the bishop moves away to f4 or to g5. But yeah, it does lock in the bishop on e3. So rook d8 was played, and Stockfish considers that an inaccuracy because he says, well, you probably should have hit that target right now. And then, for instance, play can continue like this, but then you keep chasing that bishop and you get extra control in the center. And now where does the bishop go? I could go here, but it's not ideally placed. I could also go here, but once again we can just chase the bishop because the bishop is continuously vulnerable to attacks in one move by pieces of lesser value. Obviously the bishop has to be afraid of knights and of pawns. And we can see that, well, here, with the threat of g5 and f4, white is in danger of being overrun by black's pawns here. So that's why knight d2 was not the most accurate move. But failing to make use of your targets, the pawns, whenever it's necessary, can also be considered inaccurate. So, hence, rook d8, not the best move probably. Now white plays a bit of a confusing move. He plays b2, b4. Yeah, well, the pawn on c5 is pinned, of course, right? Because the queen is behind it. So in that sense, it does make sense to attack it and to turn it into a target. But let's not forget that the pawn itself is also a target, because it is, let's see, attacked once, twice, 3 times, and it's only protected 1 time. So the attacker is in the advantage here. The only reason why he can't take on b4 is because for the moment this pawn on c5 is pinned. So what do? You attack, of course, the pinner of that pawn once again, and now Auke plays that, so that is correct, I want to say. Knight g4 is the strongest move. For the moment, white can get away with it because he has this in-between move which does attack the queen, but Auke very beautifully now saw that he doesn't need to recapture on c5. And this is the reason why he can really make this knight g4 move work. Because if knight g4 doesn't work and he would have to recapture on c5 with his pawn, then white would have gotten away with this b4 move. In fact, he would trade a flank pawn for a pawn which is even more to the center. He would open up the b file and get some very nice activity for his pieces. But the beautiful thing in chess is that when you're being attacked, and hello, you're being attacked, you're always trying to defend by means of a counterattack. And here Auke very strongly plays knight takes e3. And he takes the bishop, which was a target all the way. Now let's see what happens if white now takes that queen. Then black also takes white's queen, and let's not forget, in the process he already took the bishop on e3, so he's up a piece and easily winning the game. There's no chance for white to trap the knight on c2, because the knight can always safely escape via the a3 square. So after knight e3, white had to recapture first. But, hello, where did white's black squares go? Where did his black square bishop go? And this guy has become a new target. And look who's on that diagonal. I would have preferred to recapture now on c5 with the queen, because I would immediately be hitting this target, and I would also be hitting this target twice. There would still be a defense, d4, but after queen a5, I think that black simply has the better of it. Okay, so after f takes e3, d takes c5 was played. Not a bad move, but I suppose that queen takes c5, attacking targets, was stronger. Rook a to b1, logical move, because the queen is a target to the rook. Black now plays queen c7. And I think the nature of the struggle has changed a little bit. It is now dark squares and the bishop pair against, who knows, maybe slightly better piece activity for white at the moment. But I don't know. I only see structural advantages for black, so let's just list them. There is the bishop pair. He's strong on the dark squares. He has 2 pawn islands. White has 3 pawn islands. I think that very quickly black's pieces can also become more active. I especially don't really like this bishop on e2. The knights are still on the same trajectory. The thing is, however, and we should not underestimate, that both of white's rooks are really quite good. And white can try and prepare, I want to say repair his position by putting his pawns on dark squares, because he has minor pieces that can control the light squares, because he still has this bishop of the light squares. So if for some reason he can put his pawn here and maybe this pawn here, then this bishop can go here and this knight can go here, and who knows, we're just fully in the game, right? So yeah, I think that black has to try and stop that kind of piece deployment by white, and hope to make use of his structural advantages over the longer term. But after queen c7, a move like d4 would have been very good. But I think white fails to appreciate this, and even though he does hit a target or creates the f7 pawn into a target with knight g5, I think this attack is really a little bit premature, because it only attacks with 2 pieces, but it doesn't really repair white's position, and it leaves too many pawns on the light squares and doesn't try to improve the queen and the other knight and the bishop. And of course here there is a very simple defense against the attack on f7, and once black has defended that, the knight on g5 itself is of course a target, because it can be attacked by a piece of lesser value in one move, and in this way black can stave off white's attack. Now, the most natural way to defend here would have been knight e5. That would be activating that knight. It would protect f7, and it would turn the d-pawn into a target, but it also prepares for a little bit later on maybe to jump to g4, and from g4 it would be attacking 3 dark squares on white's half of the board. And if white would feel obliged to take that knight, then black can recapture, and now he has 2 bishops against 2 knights, so that's all very nice. Maybe we should take a look at what happens if white would try and eliminate that defender of the f7 square. But then we should not forget that white has more targets. For instance, the queen is protected 0 times and is attacked 0 times, so in balance, hence the queen is a target. And here, apart from a move like bishop h6, which is very tricky, this one, completely lining up and attacking the target on g5 in another way. There is maybe also this rather simple move, and now white cannot recapture with the c pawn because his queen is a target. He would have to recapture with the pawn, but that pawn can also be taken by the rook, and here black would be more or less winning. He would be up a pawn, and white's center is shattered. Okay, so that's why after knight e5, knight e5 is clearly the strongest move. But now Auke decides to deactivate his rook and return home and protect the rook, the pawn on f7 from f8. Of course, Stockfish considers this an inaccuracy because it loses time, it deactivates the rook, and there was this better move, knight e5. Okay. Rook f2 is now played, but again it seems that white is not really appreciating where he is weak and where his opponent's targets are. Black has a bishop of the dark squares and he's putting another piece on those dark squares. This is a target, this is a target, this can become a target. The king is on the dark square, it's all very ugly. Bishop h6 would have been a very nice move, right? And now the knight can't retreat, so the only thing to do is to protect the knight very uglily, like so. And then, who knows, maybe you can even kick the knight with this pawn. Yeah, there is a check, but you just move out of the way. And now how to defend everybody. Again, if the knight moves, you crash through on e3. So, yeah, black should have been looking to attack his targets more quickly. Black did attack the target, but he did so with the pawn, and that is less strong, I want to say, because now the knight can safely return, and maybe there will be less problems on the dark squares. Another very nice way, by the way, to attack, for instance, this target, which is protected once and attacked once, hence it's a target, and also this target is of course the double attack, the famous double attack. Now what do? This guy is threatened and that guy is threatened. Yeah, if nothing else, black is just simply winning a piece here. Yeah, so black, I think, must train a little bit better his target practice. Yeah, okay, so h6 was played, considered a blunder even by Stockfish, because he misses out on this beautiful bishop h6 and or queen e5. So the knight retreats, of course. Now queen e5 is no longer possible, because that square is controlled by the white knight. And black continues now with playing bishop g4. That I don't like this move so much. The pin is not dangerous, and in this case black is gifting white a target. This piece can be attacked in one move by a piece of lesser value. So the bishop is not completely secure, and apart from the fact that it can be attacked in one go by a piece of lesser value, it is also protected 0 times and attacked 0 times. That means it's a target. For instance, also to an attacking move like knight e5 or knight d4 can sometimes be dangerous, because then this attack would be discovered against the bishop. So bishop g4, not ideal, but for the moment there doesn't really seem to be a concrete way to make use of that. h3, however, is probably the best move. Just to ask that bishop, what are you doing here? Go away. Okay, but queen b2 was played, putting the queen in the line of fire from this bishop. But again, this is chess for you, attack and defense. One move earlier, this pawn was protected once and attacked once, so it's a target, so it makes sense that white would attack it. But we have to make distinctions between, let's say, superficial attacks and attacks that really bring us something. Very often in chess what happens is we get attacked and we defend, right? We get attacked and the opponent defends and nothing happens. So that's why a double attack hitting two targets at the same time is normally much stronger. It's the type of move that black could have played here. Because if I give, in this case, white two problems and he only can make one move at the time, then chances are that you will break through. Of course, sometimes against double attacks there are double defenses, but in this position there is not a double defense. There is not a geometric move with which white can save both his knight on g5 and the pawn on c3. Okay, so hand queen b2 looks strong, but it's very easily solved with b6. So d4 was played. Now I do like that move, because that move is part of what white is supposed to do. Yeah, it's very often not about plans, what you're supposed to do in chess, but about shopping lists. We don't devise plans. We make shopping lists of what we are supposed to do in positions. We also make a shopping list of what our opponent is supposed to do, and then part of our shopping list becomes frustrating the opponent's to-do list, right? So to-do is, of course, counterbalance black on the dark squares, because white no longer has that bishop, and open up the light squares for his light squared pieces, the bishop on e2 for instance. So d4 here really makes a lot of sense. Knight a5, isn't that a move in the wrong direction? It might be a move in the wrong direction. That knight isn't really going anywhere, maybe only played to stop white's knight or bishop from coming to c4, but the price that black is playing is putting a knight on the rim where it is dim, so Stockfish doesn't like it. I also don't like it. Anyway, let's continue. h3, yes, hitting a target. And now the funny thing is that probably the square on e6 would have been a little bit better, because on e6 black would be giving himself a target. Yes, it's targets, targets, targets all over the way. You could say, but Valdemar, by doing so, he's also gifting white a target, because now the bishop can be attacked in one go by a piece of lesser value. Yes, but look at how that completely ruins white's dark square control that he had just built up or improved upon with the move d3, d4. It would make no sense to immediately give up that e5 square, because of course here the bishop gladly returns to d7, and black will be able to make use of this pivot square sooner or later. Also maybe the knight will be able to reroute to greener pastures, what have you. So then that move would not really make a lot of sense. But I suppose that Auke saw bishop e6, d5, and then he said, nah, I don't want my bishop to be kicked around. I'll just go to d7 immediately. And now knight b3 was played. Knight b3 was played. Okay, I'm trying to figure out why this is a mistake. If we're discussing targets, huh? Well, it probably has to do with the fact that it misses out on an opportunity. I mean, white could continue his campaign of strengthening the dark squares and creating space, creating space around them on the light squares for his light square pieces by playing e4, e5. And an added bonus would be the fact that he would be hemming in this dark squared bishop. So black would not really be enjoying his dark squared control for the moment. Yeah, so e4, e5 would have been clearly stronger. And by passing up that opportunity, he now not only makes this pawn into a target, I want to say, but he also, this is important, he also allows black's knight on the rim to trade itself up for an otherwise good white knight, which could have gone to e4 after e4, e5. So that's the reason. The funny thing is, Auke doesn't exchange his bad knight. He just puts it on b7, hoping that the knight will become good later. But this is really a rather passive retreat. I think clearly the stronger move would have been to take. And then, let's say, we repair the pawn structure. And then we take it from here. Queen g3 would be nice. Well, that would be putting an awful lot of pressure on white's position, you know, in all directions. For instance, it pins the knight on f3 to the target on e3. The knight can't move. This is a target. It pins the g-pawn, so that would really have been the way forward for black. Yeah, black is enjoying a clear advantage here. So knight b3 a mistake. The retreat to b7 inaccurate. I would simply make use of that window of opportunity, not lose time, because now white again has an opportunity to repair his position, which he does with e4, e5. That is very well played. Yeah. And now Auke is trying to break iron with his hands. He now plays f6. Never touch your f pawn, huh? Okay. We do understand that he is attacking the pawn 3 times and it's only defended twice, so he wants to take that target. But let's not forget, white is strong on the light squares. Opening up this Italian diagonal could be very dangerous. And black also just gifted white this light square target. Yeah. So that is all very, very tricky. White now immediately pounces on those light squares. Bishop c4 check, king h7. And yeah. Now those two pieces are on a light square diagonal, huh? So queen c2 would have been a very nice move. And I suppose the threat here is, since white is making the pawn into a target, is a move like knight h4. So queen c2 would have been very good. Also a move like bishop d3 maybe. And white would maybe be taking over the initiative here. But instead of playing that, he plays rook to f1. And again, it has to do with a target. Yeah. Yeah, okay, let's realize ourselves that white did give the check, but what is the bishop on c4 after king h7? What is the bishop on c4? The bishop on c4 is a target. It's unprotected. 0 protectors, 0 attackers. We also say in that case it's unprotected. It's a target. 2, of course, black's queen. All that black needs to do is open up that c file and pick up the bishop. And if white saves his bishop, then black just crushes through with this move, for instance, or this move, and he would be immediately winning. So that's the reason why rook b to f1 is really a blunder. It looks very strong to pile up, but in this case white is only trying to raise his ceiling, but he's not paying attention to his floor, and he's about to fall through the floor, because what does black play? b5. And we understand why that is a blunder. Because he misses the opportunity to take on d4. Once again, black should focus on where his targets are, the stuff to attack, right? So that's another missed opportunity. He does attack the target with this move, but this is the superficial type of attack, right? We attack and we go away. We attack and we go away. Much stronger would have been to capture something and not to attack something. That also makes sense, because there's a hierarchy of forcing moves. Huh? At the top we have the check, and then we have the capture, and only then we have the attack. And of course even stronger are the capture check, which is a combination of the capture and the check, and somewhere around those three, so the check, the capture and the attack, also circles the mating threat, which is basically in and of itself an attack. But of course an attack of enormous strength, because if you cannot defend against the mating threat, then the game will be over on the next move. But here every chess player should figure out, can I give a check? No. Maybe a capture check? No. Can I capture something? Yes. I can capture on e5, but maybe I don't want to do that. Because then, at least, I would be losing my dark squared bishop. Maybe I don't want that, right? And there's trouble brewing maybe on the f-file. But there is another capture. And I'm repeating myself, but once again, of course, this would have been the strongest move. b5 was played. Bishop e2. Bishop e2. Yeah, that's a passive retreat, huh? Why not go here? And, you know, line up for some hors d'oeuvres that may be very tasty. At least you would be pinning the knight. That would be good. So, yeah, why play that? Again, not ideal. Because even though black does not win immediate material, but he could continue now with c4 to attack this target. And where does this knight have to go? He will push the knight back. He would also limit the activity of white's light squared bishop, and now maybe would be a good time to take here and at least saddle white with some doubled pawns on the e-file, or maybe win this pawn after all. Because here it would seem that black's doing that under safer circumstances, because he has pushed white's pieces back first. Okay, but black doesn't do that. He takes on e5, knight takes e5. Now bishop e5 is not possible because of rook takes f8, yeah? So he first takes here, white recaptures, and only now does he decide to take this pawn. So I suppose that black has managed something, yeah? He did have a small success. He's up a pawn here, but he lost the bishop pair. His king is not so safe, huh? On the f-file and on h7. But he's up a pawn, and he's attacking e3. Yeah. He's also attacking c3. Now, white makes a more active move. He decides to defend himself by active means. And that's good. That's very good. Bishop f3. Of course, now, after queen takes e3, bishop b7. Huh? So that's not possible. And black has first to untangle his pieces on the queen side. But now, white makes an incredible move. He just simply gives up the bishop for that horrible knight on b7. In the first place, we don't just give up bishops like that. And certainly not for knights that are sitting on b7 and that would need some time to get reactivated. So this is really a poor move, because it leaves black with an excellent bishop and white with a poor knight. The knight can't really jump forward, it can only jump backward, and then it would disturb the connection between those pieces. Yes, of course, the knight can jump to the edge of the board, but what is it doing there? And soon black may also pile up and create a battery on the light squares, like so, this or this, and start pressuring g2. So that's really a pity that you would give up a bishop unforced like that for the knight on b7. So we understand why Stockfish is not liking that. Check. Is this again the type of superficial attack that can be easily defended, and now the rook is forced into disclosing his hand? Where does the rook go? The rook has to go back. No, it's defended. It's defended. But this is a mistake. Yeah, okay, this is a mistake. Because when we play king g8, we're attacking a target. But the target doesn't go away after queen f2, because it is attacked once and it's defended once, so it's a target. What do? We attack it. We try to disturb the balance, and we either bring in an attacker or we take out a defender. And now we really have to praise Auke for this. He now blocks the defender from f2 to f8, and it turns out that the rook on f8 is trapped. So this is really the game-winning move. Queen f3 is played, counter-attacking the rook, but of course that rook will simply sidestep, and now white saw nothing better than to make a desperado, just at least get the bishop for his life. But of course here the position is turning into an easily winning technical position. Black is now also supposing an exchange of queens. White goes for it. If he doesn't, then probably he will be overrun by Black's heavy pieces. But of course this is akin to positional resignation. He does get the pawn by exchanging the queens, but this rook is going to be murderous here. And after rook d2, white threw in the towel. Okay, well, that's it for this supporter game analysis. Congratulations to Auke for winning the game. You know the drill. If you've come this far, please subscribe to the video, smash that like button, and comment on the game below. Do you also want your game analyzed? Then go to the description below this video and read all the necessary information. Thanks for your attention, and see you in the next one. Bye.